We're lucky to have Megan Martineau of Honeybee Photography with us. Welcome, Megan. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Megan Martineau. I've lived in the area since 2013. I'm a military spouse, and my husband serves in the Air Force. I have a 22-year-old son who no longer lives with us. He lives in his own place, so yay! And I have I have several cats who are not good mousers, and I'm not very happy with them right now because they're not catching the mice. So
Now,
that's me.
Megan, we had. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
We had a little bit of a chat before we went live tonight, and I'm really excited, and we've had a lot of other people excited about your presentation coming up. And can you tell me, or do we have to wait? Why did you ask us to bring some older photographs and albums with us tonight?
Well, I'll give you a little bit of a rundown of why, but I believe that the printed photograph has a great deal of value over a photograph that is digital. And that's all I'm going to say now.
Excellent. Well, Megan, if you're ready, we can get started with your wonderful presentation. I know we're going to have a lot of great questions at the end.
Oh,
So why wax poetic? Let's get started, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot. As people have questions or comments, would you like us to would you like me to bring them up, or would you like me to save them for the end?
we can discuss as we go. The last slide says discussion, but we can discuss as we go. I have no problem with that.
Okay. Well, what we'll do is you're going to be able to see the screen in real time. Everyone on Facebook has about a 20-second delay because of the
Okay.
quality.
Mhm.
When you're ready to move to the next slide, just tell me next slide, please.
Awesome. Okay, great. So, am I on now?
You are on.
Good. All right. So, the psychology of photography. This is a subject that is near and dear to my heart. When we think about photographs, we're just thinking about the here and now. And I have a theory that photographs become more sentimentally valuable as the years go by. So, what I'm going to share today is what I believe and what I've found a lot of other people to believe. So, if you can go to the next slide, please. All right. So, let's think about your past. Um, when I was a little girl, one of my most favorite activities when I went to my grandmother's house and great grandmother's house was to pore over those old photo albums. And they were heavy, they were big. You opened them up, and there were all these black and white and sepia photographs, and they had the scalloped edges, and they were stuck in with the little black corners on black paper. There was a smell that was associated with it, that lovely, slightly musty smell, and just soaking in all of that history. Even when I was young, I had an understanding of how valuable these photographs were. Most of the people in those photographs I had never met, and I knew I would never meet because they were all passed away by that point in time. But the stories were just as vibrant coming from my grandmother and my great grandmother. So some of the things that we want to think about is photos from your past that don't necessarily include you. I mean, there's photos of your family growing up. You've got grandma's photograph albums, and then studio photographs of your ancestors. So, what I want you guys to think about as you're holding your photographs right now is what comes up for you. Is it, do you have physical feelings like, I remember what that smelled like, or I remember having that photograph done, and I can remember what the sunshine felt like on my shoulders. What are the emotional things that you feel? You know, of your, especially the studio photographs of your ancestors. Um, these are people that you've never met, but there's still that tie of family generations. And then the mental part of it, what kind of feelings are you feeling? Do you feel love? Do you feel, man, I wish I could go back to that and hug my grandma and remember what it was like to be held by her in her arms? So those are all things that you want to think about when you're looking at your old photographs.
Anybody in the chat, please, write down those thoughts and those feelings you have for these photos that you've brought with us, or that you're remembering in your mind.
I would love to see those. Thanks. All right, next slide, please. All right. So when you're going through those photographs, and I don't know if any of you have ever asked these questions of the people whose albums these belong to or whatever, but did you ask questions about who is in them and what were they like? How did they sound? How did you feel when you were with them? What's going on in this photograph? And so I know that when I would look at photographs, so my grandparents loved a good dinner party. And so I remember asking my father, so what's going on here? Who are all these people? And he would tell me stories of my grandfather and what, he did. And there was always an old fashioned and a cigar in his hands. And it was just, there was a lot of things going on in there. And it was fun hearing those stories because a kid's perception of a dinner party of their parents that their parents are giving is way different than our perception as adults. And so, you've got some dear friends who lived in the neighborhood and they're dressed up, and so you want to find out all about the clothes and what were these people like and how did they sound. So the lady next door, she just had this most hilarious laugh where she went like that. Hearing those stories about those photographs not only brings it alive to the person, the younger person, like me looking at in those photo albums, but it helps the person who is in those photographs or who they originally belonged to. It helps them to feel those all over again. And that is super, super poignant. There's nothing quite like going down memory lane. But when you're holding these photographs in your hand, there's definitely a difference as opposed to looking at them digitally. Something else that you want to ask is, how did you feel when you were with them? So, say I was looking at my grandma and her sister, what was it like hanging out with her when you guys were young? Do you remember what was happening on this day? And typically a lot of photographs, and this is funny, and you guys may find this to be the same for yourselves, is back in those days, they would usually get photographs in full sun against the azalea bush or the lilac bush or some kind of bush at Easter time. That was a very popular place to be photographed in the back or the front yard. But to find out what exactly was going on in that photograph or what happened before or what happened after, you really get to get a better story of it instead of just looking at photographs. Does anybody have any questions or comments that they'd love to share?
We don't have any questions yet, but Mary Lou says love is her emotion. She kisses the photos of her kids and grandchildren and parents.
Oh, I love that so much. That's so beautiful.
Now, Megan, I'll share something that I wrote in the chat.
Sure.
The album I brought it's a collection of glass negatives from a photographer that I don't even know who the photographer was. I don't know where the photographer photographed. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what any of these people's photos are of, but
Mm-hmm.
they were abused. They had water damage, and I've got this connection with these people because I want to do right in their eyes, but I also want to share them with the world as well.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thought of having no ties to these people whatsoever, but still having that connection with wanting to preserve them.
And that is so beautiful. And the other thing is once you've preserved them, if there's authors who are always looking for inspiration. And that is a fantastic way to help them to write
All right.
a book or a short story or something like that based on photographs of people that you have no idea who they are. So, that's definitely something, to think about if you haven't.
How about anybody else? Before as we go through slides, we're gonna get other people's emotions, but we want to get a wide range of emotions. What do you think when you look back at your old photographs?
So my emotions when I'm looking at photographs of my dad who passed away in 2011, when he was a little boy, he was just so darn cute. And I never got to meet my real grandma. I only knew my step grandma. My grandma Grace, I call her. She passed away way before I was ever born. And I've looked at those photographs so many times, and I just, even though I'd never met her, I had this deep love for her. Like, it was something that I didn't quite understand, but I just had love for her. And my father asked me, "You never met her. How can you love her?" And I said, "I don't know. It's because she was your mom." And he didn't quite get that, but
Wow. Yeah.
I definitely felt deep love for Grandma Grace.
Kathy says, just got a treasure trove of old family photos from my sister in law as she was clearing out some of my brother's personal belongings after he passed in November.
Mhm.
Many were images I had never seen. It was raining on the day they came, so awesome to sit and look through them. Very
Oh,
emotional in a good way. Now I will share with some cousins that I rarely see but have reconnected with via Facebook.
that is amazing. What a wonderful gift that you've received and that you're going to be able to share that with all of your family members. And I'm so sorry for your loss, but I'm glad that you have those photographs. That's beautiful.
Julie writes, every year at Easter as a kid, we were always photographed outside at the same corner of the house. Julie, what was so special about that corner? I spent a lot of time. I spent a lot of time on the inside in the corners of the house, but
I can't imagine that at all, John.
Megan, what have you ran across any people that just don't care? They've got a thing of they've got an album and it's like, eh.
And you know what? I think it's a matter of not having been around them when they were kids.
Hmm.
Didn't Grandma didn't bring them out, or they were tucked away because she wanted to keep them nice, or whatever. And I think that has a lot to do with with that. So if you have young children, bring out those photographs, let them handle them. It's kind of like the nice china that's from your great grandmother, and you never use it. Well, you know what? If you never use it, it's never going to be loved. And so
I love that
use
analogy.
it.
Julie answered what was so special about that corner of the house. She thinks it was just the sun's position.
Ah, oh, that makes sense too. Yeah, awesome. All right. Well, so let's go on with the next slide. Okay, so physical photographs versus digital photographs. What's the difference? So going back, how does touching, feeling, and smelling of physical photograph? Now, some people might think that's weird. Or handling a photo album from 75 years ago. How does that differ from looking at one today on a screen? And before I go further, I'd love to hear what other people have to say while I'm talking about this. So this might be a little tiny bit made up, but I really want to share this with you guys. When you're touching something that is that old and has been touched by generations of people and so many people in your family, I really believe that there is some kind of energy transference. I'm not weird woo woo or anything like that, but I really believe that if you touch something that was touched by other people in your family, there's a bond that happens that is just innate. It's inside. You're not really. It's subconscious. You're not really conscientious of it. Um, but I really believe that when you're having that experience of going through Grandma's album and you're rustling the pages, so you've got all these senses being stimulated. Your eyesight, obviously, your nose, because there's that lovely musty smell. You're feeling the pages, you're feeling the scalloped edges of those old photographs. um, the finish on the photographs were much different back then than they are now, very glossy. um, you hear the rustling of the paper, and you're feeling emotions. If you're looking at it with somebody else who knows who's in the photographs in the photo album, you're getting stories. And this is a really great way also to get people who are older, like if your grandma has dementia, this is a great way to kind of rev up her memories and bring her to a more lucid state.
Hmm.
Now, I'm not a medical professional. I can't say that for sure, but I do know that I've read studies about that. And so that's really important. When you're looking at something on a screen, and I'm just going to grab my phone, there's no emotion. I'm like, I can look at photographs and I'll be like, oh, that's cute. Oh, that's cute. And keep swiping. That's cute. That's cute. And so when you're looking at photographs on a screen, that's typically what we do. We don't take the time to actually look at it, talk about it, feel the emotions. Does anybody have any comments? I'd love to hear any comments
We
about
have a
that.
ton of great comments coming in.
Sweet.
Jackie wrote she's been converting her grandmother's albums, 11 of them,
Oh
into
wow.
acid-free albums, and trying to tell her story from her point of view. It's been easy to do when I was doing the photos from her childhood. As I've gotten closer to my own life, it has gotten more difficult as I know more about the story behind the photos. Throughout this whole process, I have always been very aware of the story of my grandmother shared with me and that I am handing down to my grandchildren.
That just touches my heart so much. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. Yeah, those stories need to be handed down. It's really important. It's a great way to share the history of your family. Any
Susan
other
Wright Susan writes that she's been filling the gaps of information in her own family genealogy since 2013. Uh,
nice?
both her parents passed while she was an adult, but it was such a joy to be given photos of my parents as children that were shared with me during my research.
That is fantastic. How awesome. Is she using ancestry.com or there's a couple other ones?
Susan, let us know what you're using. Mary Lou writes, I love framed family photos, and I guess she's putting photos on the refrigerator as well. That's a great.
That's awesome. Then you get to see them every single day. Pro tip here so they don't get messed up, go ahead and laminate them, but make sure that they're not the good copy.
Mm. JC writes, I love seeing how we've changed over the years, the way we dressed back then versus the way we dress right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And that was one of my favorite things because, there was a bunch of pictures of my mom in the 50s where, back then they went to a million dances. They had, dance clubs for kids all over the place. So she had all these beautiful dresses, and I'd be like, she'd tell me all about it and how they sounded when she twirled and all kinds of stuff. So, yeah,
Jackie, let's see. Jackie says she's one person in a chain. Her great great grandmother looked at this, held it, and now she is, and that's just awesome.
oh, so wonderful.
Ed writes now. Ed is our he's our historian. He's the
Awesome.
guy that he knows to bring the camera every time. He takes these great images. He's just great at telling a story of what's going on. And Ed is he's nice enough to share the photos with us, and he puts together these great videos for us as well for some of our camera club events. He
Awesome.
writes, I bring my Camry at every family event and take candid photos. I made up an album for my grandson, my granddaughter, my wife, and I throughout the years, and we can see how we have grown and developed. It is a treasure to be remembered.
That's beautiful. And having those albums, even I don't know how he does them, but today's albums where they're printed right on the paper, that's an amazing way to do that. Absolutely.
Now, Julie brings up a really interesting part that maybe you can talk a little bit about more
Sure.
about. She's right. She also likes seeing the information on the back and the ID of those in the photo.
Hmm.
Now that's a problem nowadays. Just like it was a problem back then with CDVs and other photos. It's just you know who that person is, and the problem is that person may pass on, and now you've got a box of photos you don't know who they are.
Exactly. So, are we talking about photos today that are printed or photos from our yesteryears that are printed? And we,
Well, I think anything from yesteryear, if you see the ID and you see the back, I mean, you still might not know who it is, but you've got at least a fighting chance.
yeah,
But if a photo is not labeled, then you're kind of SOL. But how
right.
about photos of today? I mean, what should people be doing?
So if you have photographs on, so let me go back to the other thing. Remember when I was saying that if your grandma has dementia and showing those old photographs could get their mind stimulated? I really believe that you could probably get some information because people with dementia and Alzheimer's have a tendency to live in the past. And so there's an opportunity, a huge opportunity right there to see if you can't find out a little bit about those people. Also talk to your aunts and uncles and cousins because you never know, they might know exactly who those people
Hmm.
are. When I think about labeling photographs, I don't like writing directly on the back of them because then with ballpoint pens, it just goes right through or it smudges if it's with a marker. And so I recommend just using labels and writing on the label and then sticking it on the back of the photograph. What should people do today? Well, we all have this lovely little tool called a cell phone camera or a smartphone with a camera lens. And, sometimes you get really, really cute photographs, but we have a tendency to go, okay, I'm going to get like 7 of these, and then it takes up all the room on your phone. What are you going to do with those photographs? Because people have the best intentions. I have a client who said, oh, I never print my photographs. Every month I go through my photographs on my computer.
Mm.
And I was just like, that must be nice to have that kind of time. So I recommend that as you're taking your photographs, put them in a special album. And then if you don't have one of those little selfie um, photo printers that do the 4x6s, send them off to Walgreens or Walmart or wherever, mpix.com. Get some of those prints, and then put them in a scrapbook or something like that, because those printed photographs are going to be so important.
Mm.
You never know what might happen, and we're going to talk about that in a couple of minutes, but you never know what will happen to your digital photographs.
We've got a couple more comments.
Sure.
Kathy writes something special at a time when a photo was not one of many like today. We printed photos and then mailed some to our distant parents. They have passed, and now we, through inheritance, have the photos again.
And isn't that just so awesome to have that and show those to your children? And that is so true. That is something that we totally did back in the day.
Susan answers at ancestry.com. Mormon Church Digital.
Mm-hmm.
The best info has come from asking distant cousins too that she's never met. They have
Mm-hmm.
fantastic memories and could identify and tell backstory to the shared relations. Actually got to meet those 80-year-old cousins in 2017.
Oh man, that must have been just the best family reunion. How exciting is that? Fantastic. I
Megan,
love that.
What do you say about somebody who may be kind of apprehensive to say, "Oh, well, I don't want to. I don't want to ask my mother, my father, my grand. I don't want to bring them this album of photos and say, hey, let's identify everybody." What would you kind of say to someone that might be saying something like that?
So if, you want to think about the other person's perspective, because they will probably have a lot of joy over seeing it. So like, and let me rephrase what it is that you're suggesting. So say, um, 25 years from now, my son Noah has photographs, and he doesn't know who all the people are because it was from my childhood, and he felt like it was a weird thing for him to bring those photographs to me. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what I would say is think about the person with whom you want to share the photographs with, and find out those stories, because even though it might feel weird to you, I mean, don't you have kind of a curiosity about who those people were? And even if it doesn't quite excite you, this is an opportunity for that person to talk about the people that they loved who have passed on. And it brings up those stories, and you never know what kind of a treasure of stories that you're going to have.
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to find that out if you don't ask. And sometimes just don't even ask, just bring it and say, surprise, look what I've got. And everybody sit down and check those photographs out. You can even make it a game.
One more comment before we'll let you go on to the next slide. Mike writes, he's been digitizing all of his family prints and 11,000 slides. His dad took mostly of him. He also goes on findagrave.com, where apparently you can post your photos alongside of those digital representations of those gravestones.
Oh my gosh,
That's
that's
amazing.
awesome. Wow, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that was available out there.
Mm-mm.
Very nice. But I do know on ancestry.com you can add all the photographs, and that also helps people um, get reconnected on that website. So
That's
awesome.
nice. And we're caught up.
Cool. All right, next slide, please. Okay, physical photographs in your hand, energy transference. And, we talked about that a little while ago. And it takes you back to that time and place. So I want you guys to think about a photograph that you have from when you were a kid. And it could be any photograph. And personally, I'm thinking right now, and I didn't get a chance to grab a photograph for myself. But there's this one photograph of me when I was probably about 3 years old. It had cute little blonde hair, and I'm wearing a yellow poncho, and I'm standing in front of these red tulips. And it's not the best quality, but I still remember that day. My memories go back to when I was like a year and a half old, but I remember that day, and I remember what that sunshine felt like, and I remember what the tulips smelled like, and my dad talking to me, and just exploring the front yard. So I remember all of that. But I think that, and some people say, I don't know if I have that actual memory in my head or if I have that memory based on a photograph. And then somebody told
Hmm.
me the story behind it. And that's very true. But I actually do remember that. But I don't think that my memory would be stimulated unless I had seen that photograph. Because we don't think about our memories. If we had all of those memories running, we would be crazy. um, but we're talking about the different senses. So feeling the sunshine, hearing the birds and the voices of people whom you love and are gone, smelling the air. And grandpa's pipe back then, people smoked, and there's a lot of people out there who associate smell with memories. And or taste the banana bread that only auntie could make perfectly. So now when you have a physical photograph in your hand and you're touching it, all of that, all of those emotions, all of your senses are being stimulated because you're looking at this photograph. So does anybody have any comments about that?
Nothing right now.
Okay, awesome. Let's go ahead to the next slide. Okay, so there are two, and I this is kind of there are two senses that we have no control over, and that's not true because we can block things out. We can hold our nose if we're sick. Um, but basically, the senses of smell and hearing. Um, you can't help but hear a bird singing. You can't help but smell a skunk. And so those two types those senses, I believe, help you to go back to a moment also. So if you're looking at a photograph of you at a, when you were camping with your family, and there's a campfire going on, immediately you're going to smell in your mind's nose what that campfire smelled like, and it can bring you back to that moment. Anybody have any comments about that?
Nothing yet. Everybody, if anybody has any comments or questions, feel free to throw them in there. We are about a 20-second delay, but we'll make sure we get back to you. I
Okay.
love I love that you brought up the campfire smell,
Hmm.
especially nowadays if you're either around a campfire or you go camping, and you'll kind of smell that smell off of your, maybe your jacket or something, or your tent,
Hmm.
and that automatically takes you back. That is such a strong connection there.
It really, really is. It really is. Or, even the smell of flowers. If you're at a botanical garden, when you were a kid, there's a photograph of me at the flower show in Philadelphia way back in, I think, 1979. And I had never been to a flower show before. And so there's a photograph of me, and I'm looking off to the side because I didn't know when my dad was taking the photograph. He was fiddling with the focus and all that. And there's this photograph of me, and I'm looking over, and I just remember the scent of the flowers from being in there, and how loud it was inside, because whenever you're in a big area, all the sounds are bouncing. So yeah, every time I look at photographs, I smell or hear or feel, whatever was going on in that area from
Mm,
that day. That's really a special thing to be able to enjoy too.
absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Next slide. So, how does this apply to photography that you do now? Why is including all the senses so important? And then why print when digital is so much more convenient? So, today's photography is a lot different than it was a generation or two ago. So I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I'll give you a hint. I graduated high school in 1986. So way before I was born, not that far, but people again photographed in full sun, facing the subject, and in front of a flowering bush. But now today, because we have digital, we are able to do so much more. We can get those detail shots. We can whatever it is that catches our fancy. If there's a photograph that you want to do of your children's hands with a butterfly or something like that, that we can do that. So when you're photographing now, think about how this is going to affect you in the future. And there's a lot of people out there who, like my clients, when I ask them questions about their kids, and I say to them, how do you think your kids will feel about this particular photograph that we're going to do in 10 years? What do you think it'll mean to them 25 years from now? And we've already injected a bunch of different of the senses already into this conversation, and so that makes them look forward and go, oh, it's going to be really important because we're going to be doing this in my mom's backyard, and you know I want my kids to remember what it felt like to be encompassed with all those trees and the garden that she has back there, and all of that. Um, So why print when digital is so much more convenient? Just for everything that I've already mentioned, that we want to be able to feel, to truly feel. Now, it's really important to have those digital backups, but if you keep them on your phone only and your phone gets dropped, and I I did that, and thankfully I use the iCloud so that I'm able to hold on, everything gets backed up onto that cloud. But not everybody does that. And like my mother-in-law, um, yeah, she did that. She had never backed up any of her photographs, and she was devastated. This was probably 2013, 2014 when she did that. She had never moved her photographs onto a hard drive, and she lost all those photographs, and she was
Hmm,
devastated, absolutely devastated.
that's terrible.
Yeah, anybody have any questions?
Mary Lou, she says there's a smell of a certain shrub. She smells it again when she's out walking.
Hmm.
What memory does that bring up to you, Mary Lou? Is that
Yeah.
something that what do you connect that smell with? And Kathleen writes, the images that I most value are photos of rooms that I loved, such as my grandmother's kitchen or my home when I was I'm guessing when she was a kid.
And I bet those were like holiday affairs when the whole family was over, and there's just that nostalgia.
And even though, and probably even though your grandmother's not in that photo, you can still picture in your mind her leaning up against the table or the countertop.
Exactly.
That's wild.
Exactly.
I
That's
shared that I like that old basement storage smell that a lot of those old photo albums have, and some of those old prints that have that the little bit of vinegar syndrome happening, which is
yep.
important to put them in the their acid free stuff, and at least the story I'm telling is that's why I like going to antique stores that much.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Any other questions or comments?
Let's see. Mary Lou writes, I would like to use the service that makes. Yeah, her comment got cut off.
Okay.
It reminds me of home and her childhood and the house she grew up in for the shrub smell.
Okay.
Jackie writes, her great grandfather's pipe. Jackie, was it like a? I know Christine. She remembers her grandfather smoking like cherry tobacco,
Hmm.
and she always liked that. Julie writes, my grandparents lived on the bay. The smell of the bay brings back memories. Laughter is something that my family enjoys at all of our gatherings.
That is so awesome. That
That's a
is awesome.
that's a good sound for sure.
It really is. And so all those photographs, you're always going to have that smell and those sounds in your head as you're looking at those photographs. So even 30 years from now, when you're looking at them, you'll be brought right back to that moment in time.
Julius also says the sound of waves hitting the beach brings
Oh,
back memories of her grandparents.
how beautiful. So
That's wild.
anytime she actually sees waves on a beach, she probably is, makes her think of her grandparents. So that's awesome too.
Jackie says he smoked Prince Albert, yes, in a can, tobacco. You bet, Jackie. You better let him out.
I was just gonna say,
I'm sorry.
oh gosh. All right.
Mary Lou says she wants to start using one of the services that makes the small albums, and that brings up a really good question for you. Do you need to go out and buy an album, or is kind of the old standby of 4x6 in a shoebox just as precious?
Um, as long as it's acid free, if you're holding on to those old photographs, and you don't want to get them printed into an album, absolutely, by all means. Just make sure that you have them, organized, and even with post-its on the back, if you don't do a sticker writing down who it is that's in those photographs, um, you just you just want to make sure. Now, I think that they're going to be preserved more if you have them in an album, because then everybody's got their fingerprints on them and things like that. I'm not suggesting you buy everybody white cotton gloves like when you're working with negatives, but um, just make sure everybody has clean, dry hands when they're looking at them. Just be very careful, but handling them, as long as it's done carefully, so they don't get messed up.
Is there an album that you like using, Megan?
Oh, is there an album that I like using?
An album creation company.
Oh, an album creation
Mm-hmm.
company. So I like mpix.com. They do a really good job. The vendor that I use is McKenna Pro. So if you guys want the address, it's McKenna Pro, McKennapro.com, and they will take such good care of you. Now, my rep from there is Christie, Kristie, but Nanette, Nannette, she's wonderful too. So you can call them and get some information. They have several different types of albums. They have soft cover with like the magazine pages from the press print
Mm.
version, and those are actually really really nice. For the price that you pay, it's really very very reasonable, and those are perfect for like giving your children or grandchildren. So they can look at photos also, and then they have the lay flat albums, which are spectacularly made, and and their rose system is really easy to use.
Wow. Kathleen writes that she was the one who mentioned seeing the photos of like her grandmother's kitchen, and she said they were empty rooms just showing where everything was placed. Wow, that's a very unique concept.
That's really beautiful, because you know what? Then that's like a stage, and when you're looking at a photograph like that, you can just imagine the people passing by and all those years, and the table laden with food, and all the fun memories of learning how to cook with grandma, and things like that. um, because I think that stirs things up too. And kitchens back in those days, they definitely had their own smell as well. So all the sights, the sounds, the smells that were going on there, I'm sure that she's able to remember all those things, even looking at an empty room.
Wow, that's such a very unique concept. I like that a lot.
Me too.
Ed says whenever he sees a photo of his grandmother, he remembers the peach pie she would make.
Oh, pie is so good with whipped cream and some cinnamon on top.
Anne writes she inherited old family photographs when her dad died, and one of her favorites was an old carte de visite of her great grandmother and her brother that was taken in Ireland, that she brought to the country when she came here in about 1870.
Oh my gosh,
What a treasure!
that is something to be cherished forever.
Wow.
Absolutely. I love that. And I want to ask, how does it make you feel to hold that, to touch that, to look at it? I, I
Yeah,
would
we'll
love
see
to
if
know
she
what your thoughts are.
we'll see what she replies to that. Jackie says she likes an album system that she's using that has page covers um, and she uses them for every page. I'm
So,
getting maybe one of the old ones with the sleeves. You just slide the photo in.
or is she talking about the page protectors by
Hmm.
Acid Freestyle?
I'm not sure. We'll have to get her to clarify that. JC writes digital photographs are more convenient, but they are not as personal as prints to him.
They are definitely more convenient. And then you can always pick out the very best ones, because back in the day when we used film, and film was so precious, you people didn't take, two or three at a time like we do, because they tried to make the film last for as long as possible and then get those photographs printed. And then they had very specific um, types of photographs on there. But now you can go through, the two or three. And it was funny is, um, there's always the photos because the sun's coming in the subject's faces, and they're all like that or like that. Um, and I think it's just fun seeing those different expressions and the gestures that they did. Or and I know that there are even candid photographs of my great grandfather, because he was a hunter and he was with his buddies, and they've all got their pipes and their shotguns, and they don't even have any game in front of them. It's just them with their stuff, and I just love that. I love those photographs because I can imagine the conversation. They're probably talking about pinups and blowing smoke and just enjoying the fresh air. So I like imagining those things also.
Megan, you bring up a really interesting point. Back then you would send your photos out to get printed, and you would always get doubles.
Yeah,
So the thought is you'd keep one and you'd give one, and I would be interested in seeing maybe doing a survey or doing a study of exactly how people's family collections grew and prospered because of that. And if we
yeah,
didn't have that, I wonder where we'd be today.
yeah. What if it was all digital back then? We
Yeah.
wouldn't. Because as one of my favorite satirists, you may have heard of her, Missy Whack. She says nobody's ever going to ask, where's the memory card of grandma when she was a baby.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So yeah,
Dust off this 4 kilobyte brick.
I know, right? So, so does anybody else have any
Jackie,
comments?
Did a little bit of clarification. She's talking about page protectors. They
Okay.
slide over each page and keep sticky little fingers off the photos, which is great because you can encourage the kids to touch
Mm-hmm.
and go
Absolutely,
through.
I love it. That's awesome.
Kathy remembers "Lights in Your Eyes" was so common once people started the Super 8 movies. Jackie, oh, we've got some good comments coming in. Jackie says, "I wonder if they were documenting possessions with the family with the empty room photos. Current homeowners insurance companies suggest you walk through your house and take photos of each room to document your possessions."
Yeah, that's true.
That's definitely true, but man, that they definitely will do double duty.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's an awesome idea.
Cheryl writes she doesn't have any old family photos. However, she spent many nights with her great grandma going through her photos. I learned how she loved and lost her husband. He was a physician who died in the second wave of the Spanish flu, leaving her with 9 children. She shared the devastation and struggle to make ends meet and the various houses she moved into as she lost more and more family wealth. She shared photos of each phase of this and then ended up living in DC, making very expensive hats. My mom has these photos now, and that's where she learned her creativity.
That is such an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I would love to see some photos of those fancy hats. I love hats from those days.
And the thought is Cheryl, if your mom has all the photos now, this is something that my wife Christine and I are working with. Is we're trying to get all the family together and just have a scanning party one day where
Oh, that's a good idea.
everyone scans. You scan the front, you scan the back, and everybody gets a DVD and try to put it somewhere. But the problem with digital is even a DVD in a couple years is kind of questionable.
We're going to talk about that in just a couple
Oh,
minutes.
good.
Yeah.
Uh, then we have one more comment from Anne.
Sure.
It's a gem, only a few inches high, but has incredible detail of her 10-year-old face. I think she's talking about the carte de visite. And the
Ah,
clothes she wore, there were a lot of stories of her, and I love seeing her as a child before she came over.
oh,
That's amazing.
that's so awesome. I
Oh, we
love
got we got two more.
two more.
Ed writes, we have 30 albums and they are stored on a shelf. I would like some ideas on giving them away to my family to enjoy.
Okay.
And then Jackie writes to Mary Lou. Mary Lou had asked what the page protectors were, and she had written creative memories, and she offered to help her out a little bit after
Oh,
the stream.
yes.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Okay, I think we're all caught up.
Okay, so going back to the gentleman about he has several albums. So if he can write as we're going on and let us know how old those albums are and all those kinds of things.
Okay,
All right, next slide.
next slide.
Here we go. Technology used to look at photos. So 50 years ago, this is when I was a baby, um, we had photos and we had slides. Um, we had John, help me out here. We what kind of photographs did we have back then?
Oh, 50 years ago. What's that going to be? The 70s? You're going
60s, 70s, yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna have color. You're gonna have slides. We've got some Kodachrome slides from the 1940s that look like they were shot yesterday.
Yep.
The problem with the other kind of manufacturers, Kodachrome used about 27 nasty chemicals to develop it. If I'm remembering my chemistry correctly, where the other ones would have about 7 to 10, and a lot of the Fuji and a lot of the other the non Kodachrome slides are very fading in the non-red channels.
Yeah, exactly. And so, because I know you know the history of all this, and
Hmm.
I don't know all the details, but that is definitely one technology was using the slides in the projector. And let's face it, not everybody took super good care of their slides. Um, so, so that's definitely a technology that may or may not um, work for people. And nobody has projectors anymore. So now we've got those little scanner units that we can do that with, and then turn them into JPEGs. 25 years ago, 25 years ago, I think the digital camera was like a 6 pound brick, right?
I had one. I had one in '98, and it was terrible. It was absolutely horrible. I think it was one megapixel, and that was about it.
That's crazy. I also know that in the mid 90s, when it was popular to be on dating sites, you would take a picture and then you'd scan it to be put onto a floppy disk, and then you would view it that way on your computer. Guess what, John?
What's that?
I can't open those photographs because I don't have a floppy disk reader.
That's a good thought.
Yeah.
I mean, I yeah. If it wasn't for what I did in a past life, I wouldn't have a floppy drive sitting around here with a USB connection. But even
Yeah.
then, are those discs going to have no data corruption?
And that was the next thing I was going to bring up. They only last for a couple of years. So there's a lot of people out there that I've spoken to who said, "Oh, I've got slides. Oh, I've got negatives." And negatives, again, just like slides, they can decay, they can corrode if they've been in the basement and it flooded. Um, if it's in the attic, they get hot and brittle. So taking care of your negatives isn't always, um, a surefire thing either. Uh, and so we've got 15 years ago. So 15 years ago, we had hard drives
Hmm.
and we had memory sticks, thumb drives. I'm trying to think of what else. No, and those were like becoming popular
Yeah,
because
the zip. Remember the
20
remember the zip discs, the 100 megabyte zip discs.
yes,
They
those.
the click of death, the jazz with the 1 gigabyte. CDR,
Mm-hmm.
probably writing at one speed, about 74 minutes to get all your images on there.
Oh my god. And and then DVD, people would use DVDs instead of CDs in order to, because supposedly it lasted longer or was better quality or whatever. And 10 years ago, isn't that kind of when? So it's 2020. So I think the cloud was just basically being born at that point in time. So that was kind of a new thing.
Hmm.
People also started believing in backing up their photographs, like on Flickr.
Yeah.
Um, and there was a time when back then I used Flickr to help me, and I still have that. It's still there, but um, I don't even hardly use it anymore. I still pay the $20 a year to
Mm.
Yahoo to be able to still have those photographs. Um, and now we've got all of these amazing 3 terabyte hard drives that are like this big, and I've got 2 of those, to back up all of my photographs. So I have a computer screen, I have my phone, I have my iPad, and then I have a little screen on my printer. I have a little screen on my selfie that I use at events. I have, there's all different kinds of ways to look at the photographs. But let's face it, these pieces of technology are not built to last forever, are they?
It's a ticking time bomb. No
Mm-hmm.
matter no matter what you're using,
What's that?
it's a ticking time bomb. No matter what technology you
Oh
use, because people are using cloud nowadays. But how many cloud services have you seen? Kind of close their doors up. Say, all right, well it's taken you 3 months to upload your photos. Well, you've got 3 months to get them all back off again.
yeah, exactly. And how devastating is that if you don't even see the email,
Yeah.
because they're not going to call you.
Mm-mm.
They're not gonna they'll keep. And if you're using Gmail and you have all the tabs and it goes into your update and you never check in there, or it goes even to spam and you never look, you're never gonna know. And then you're gonna go, oh yeah, I have this cloud account, and then you go there and it's gone.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, that would be just as devastating as when my mother-in-law dropped her phone in the water. So
Wow.
yeah, so
And even hard drives. There's no answer.
there really isn't. The only thing that I can say is back up several times, and then every few years. I know it's a pain in the butt, but you need to re-back up your stuff,
Mhm.
because just in case
One thing
you.
that I always tell people to do also is when you make backups,
Mhm.
make sure you spin those hard drives up every couple months, because
Yes,
what happens is the lubrication on those platters can get old and brittle, and it's just a matter of time until that lubrication gets hard enough that motor can't power through it.
and that is a great thing to bring up, because I have one that was from 2009 and it doesn't work anymore just because
Ooh.
of that. I didn't start it. I think I discovered that in 2014, and that was some of my earliest. So my background, I started my business in 2006, um, and so those are clients from that era. And yeah, I mean, I have other places where those photographs are, because I put them on the cloud as well. But still, to think, oh, I'm going to have this hard drive forever, and that is simply not true.
Yeah. And
So does anybody have any comments or questions?
one thing I'll also say about the hard drives is also make sure you get a copy off site.
Mm-hmm.
Think about all the potential problems that can happen with that hard drive, and if you have a house fire or a flood, God forbid, go through it. However much you're going to cry when you lose those photos, that's how much effort you need to put into giving someone you trust an offsite backup, and
Exactly.
then move them in and out every once in a while. But again, it's still a ticking time bomb. A lot of the old technology is very archival when treated correctly, but the problem is we have daguerreotypes, and daguerreotypes are a silver plate that
Yeah.
tarnishes. And once that silver plate tarnishes, it's gone forever. But the problem
Right.
is the way you seal it with the sealing tape. It only lasts for 50, 60, 70 years, and eventually someone's going to forget about it, and eventually it's going to be lost to time.
Well, let's take a look at that for a second. You've got the sealing tape on those for 60, 70 years compared to a drive that only lasts for a couple of years.
It's much better, but still, it's still a matter of time.
Well, yeah,
But then
and
again, everything is before the giant meteor comes, right?
well, exactly. Any comments or questions?
We have plenty. Let's see here. I'm trying to make sure where we were. And
The last one I think was the kitchen was empty.
yes, Julie Bennett brings up Polaroid.
Oh yes,
I love
Polaroid.
Polaroid. Susan writes, documenting and storing photos is crucial for future generations. Sadly, another way that family information will be lost to future generations is the changes in the 10-year census. The census reports from 1880 through 1940 hold a wealth of info for genealogy searching, but there is very minimal info on the 2020 census. Hmm.
That is very, very true.
Yeah.
That is very true because this generation right now is the most photographed and will have the least amount of prints.
Megan, do you know that what is the there was a number that's going around that, oh gosh, I can't remember. It was something like today we took more photographs than the first 15 years of the digital photography revolution or something like that. Do you know that stat?
I don't have that statistic, but I've seen it and it's true.
It's unreal.
It is unreal.
Ed
Yep.
writes, a family gathering in the 50s to the 70s always included a slideshow with the projector.
Absolutely. That was like the entertainment. I remember my stepmother, she had taken a trip to Ireland, and this is shortly after she and my dad got married, and she brought that out because there was a whole bunch of family and friends on her side, and they all wanted to see these pictures from when she went to Ireland, and it was fascinating. It was really beautiful.
Wow.
Um, so, and then she would, sit there and tell stories, and she'd go right up to the screen and say, "Well, this is what this was, and this person," and it was a really fun time. So that was definitely a thing that people did
Wow.
back then.
Jackie writes, you have to also be careful in printing. Use the wrong paper and ink or the wrong paper and ink combination, and it won't last. It'll fade. And
Yeah.
she says she's got cyanotypes from the 1900s that look like they did when they were produced.
Hmm.
Very archival process.
Yeah, and then you look at photographs that, and back in the '70s, that's when Kmart and J.C. Penney and Sears and Olin Mills has been around forever. I don't think they're in business anymore, but photographs from those places are now either very magenta or very green, very faded orange.
What are your thoughts on what's the best the best way to store these? If you have a shoe box of 4x6s or an album, what's the best way you found to store them?
So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you have acid-free sleeves for them. um, and you can take them out and handle them. It's just that uh, you want to keep them protected so that you have them forever. That's the best way to do it. I
Gotcha.
think photo albums are better than shoe boxes, because in shoe boxes they tend, unless you have them. So when you said that, I'm thinking of like stand up folders inside the shoe boxes, and then you've got like 10 inside of a little folder that's the same size as the width. But I imagine that you're talking about a whole pile of photographs just thrown into the box. So which one are you talking about?
Probably either. To be honest with you.
So if you're really super organized, having that, the best course is to purchase those boxes that are acid free. But not everybody has the luxury of doing that. So having a well built box can make all the difference. If you've got something that's kind of flimsy, you never know, a mouse might chew through it, and that would be devastating also.
Yeah.
So acid free is the way to go for those.
Gotcha. We're caught up on comments.
Cool. Let's go to the next one. Technology used to look at photos. So, and this is something that we can think about and dream about. But unless, and I did some research on this. Oh dear, hold on. Sorry about that. That's my Google voice.
No problem.
Um, so technology used to look at photographs 10 years from now. How are we going to be able to look at those photographs 10 years from now? And 25 years from now, how are we going to be able to take the photographs that we do today? Is there going to be technology that we can use still in order to look at those photographs? Because I imagine that 25 years from now, I mean, we'll probably have screens, we'll probably have computers and hard drives and everything like that. Um, but will it be, we no longer have, um, like Apple computers, they no longer put the disk drive in there, the CD drive in there. Everything is on the cloud, and or you purchase an external um, drive in order to play anything like that. So how are we going to be able to do those photographs, or look at those photographs in the future? So we've got that to think about. Or we can take really good care of of our photographs by printing them, by storing them properly, and 25 years from now be able to share those with our grandchildren, great grandchildren. 50 years from now, I mean, we don't even, I can't imagine other than what we already have. So does anybody have any comments about that?
Any thoughts on what we're going to see 50 years from now? Anybody in the chat? Well, we're 20 in.
Mm-hmm.
You've got some ancient formats like some of the older, I guess, Apple formats and some of the old Amiga formats that
Yeah,
you can still get converters for. So I think you might be good from up to 25.
right.
But JPEG, JPEG's days are numbered. I think there's going to be something coming out pretty soon for that,
I agree.
or it may not. But I think we're going to see something new from there.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts in the chat?
And of course, cameras are changing rapidly. Cameras are changing rapidly, and the technology that they have on them, as well as any new formats that we might come up with. Um, there's going to be so many changes. I can't really imagine getting much different than what we have now, but I know that it's coming.
Yeah. Now, Megan, we've had stereo photography since the 1850s. It's failed miserably every time it's come out. Do you think stereo photography is ever going to get a good shot?
So I remember Ritz camera, and they had this camera that had two lenses on it. So you couldn't do it vertically, you had to do it horizontally. And the way, and I don't remember exactly, but this was with film, and they were able to take 3D photos
Hmm.
with those. And suppose, a little bit, I think part of it was the paper that they were going to be printed on also. um, you know and unless we have the right technology for that, or if there's a way in Photoshop that they could process it like 3D. I don't know.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts, John?
Oh, I don't think so.
Yeah.
We have 3D TVs that was a big push a couple years ago.
Mhm.
Unless these virtual goggles really take off so that it's something you're constantly seeing, I don't really think it's gonna. So,
Or you would have to have massive knowledge on how to, in Photoshop, how to manipulate those photographs.
absolutely, yes. Hmm.
So yeah. Anybody have any comments?
Let's see what we got. Jackie says she thinks stereo cards are neat. They're great. Stereo photography is amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of fun as long as they were done correctly.
Right. Absolutely.
That's a big thing right there. And it's fun watching movies that are period movies where they put the two slides in there, and then they're like, oh, look at that, it's an elephant, or it looks so realistic.
Mary Lou says holograms.
Holograms, interesting.
like
Yeah,
Star Wars, like Help Me Obi-Wan Kenobi.
help me, Obi-Wan. And then didn't they do Who in a concert in recent history?
Tupac, wasn't it? Wasn't it Tupac?
Yes. I didn't watch it, but I heard all about it. So yeah, I mean, and in one of my classes that I'm taking, we were talking about drone technology,
Mm.
and somebody had said, there's going to be a point in time where, drones can be used for advertising. And my first thought was, when you go to the beach and the biplanes go by and they have the long trail of advertising, go to Joe's Pizza, you
Mm-hmm.
know, special deal on slices if you tell them you saw this or whatever. I don't know. And so I was like, well, I don't know how they would do that at the beach. But then I thought, the drone could go up to a wall and project on there, or it could hover and there would be a hologram. So yeah,
Interesting.
that's very true. That
Jackie
would be,
says 3D TVs and virtual goggles can't be used by everybody.
yeah. People can get really sick, or they just don't have the depth of perception of their for their eyes.
Or if in 50 years the aliens land and they're all Cyclops. I think we're caught up.
Okay, great. Let's go to the next. Oops. So here's my belief. No matter the technology, the most cherished way is to handle them. And in touching and feeling them and looking at them and seeing them, I believe that you'll be taken back to that moment and relive it every single time. It's a wonderful thing to be able to sit there with these cherished photographs and share them with your families. In ancient days, people would tell. I mean, there was no photography, obviously, but they would tell stories, and they would. These were oral histories passed down from generation to generation. And so, what I think would be amazing if I knew something about an ancestor from the late 1700s, and I don't have that luxury. Some people do because their families were huge storytellers, and they wanted to make sure that they passed that legacy down to their children. And really, isn't that what this is all about?
Mm.
Is not just having an oral history, but a visual history with the stories that go with it. And when you tell the stories and the kids relate the stories to the photographs, and the stories are very descriptive. This is like taking the one with the kitchen. This was my grandma's kitchen, and in this kitchen on the week before Christmas, we were baking, and I just got a shiver. We were baking and we were singing songs, and my grandma was teaching me how to make bread, and I remember when my cousin came in, and he was sopping wet because he'd been playing in the snow, and you get all of these images in just from looking at the picture of an empty kitchen.
Hmm.
And I think that's so beautiful.
That's
I
wild.
really do. Does anybody have any questions or
Jackie
comments?
says she loved her Viewmaster. Going back to
Oh,
the
yeah,
3D.
the
Viewmaster was
Viewmaster.
cool.
Ching.
And Mary Lou says she does a lot of research on Civil War photos, and the prints are very, very detailed.
Nice.
And that is because Mary Lou, George Eastman ruined the party by going from collodion to gelatin.
What was he thinking, John?
Well, Ansel Adams had to take a bunch of plates of half of El Capitan, bring them home, let them rattle around in his junk drawer for a couple of months before he develops them. Right?
Hmm.
With
Absolutely.
with Civil War photos, it was all done wet. And Mary Lou's seen one of our demonstrations before.
I got to see these demonstrations. Awesome. Any other comments or
None
questions?
yet.
Okay, great. All right. And discussion.
Discussion.
I would love to get some feedback about, people's thoughts about some of the things that we've talked about here today. Um, I know that I go pretty deep with the meaning of photographs, but you know, with with today's digital technology, I really feel like people, just keep swiping. Oh, that's cute. Oh, that's cute. Oh, that's cute. And and then that's a behavior that's passed down to your children, and they go, oh, that's cute. Oh, that's cute. Oh, that's cute. Oh, that's terrible. hate that picture of me. What was I doing? What was I thinking when my friend took that crazy picture of me? And they're just swiping. And there's something to be said about just taking the time and looking at those photographs,
Mm.
cherishing that time with your family, and reliving special moments of your own life. Um, there's a photograph that I have. It was taken with, I think, a 110, and we had a sailboat when I was in um, middle school and high school. And this sailboat had orange and yellow striped sails, and it was just such a pretty little. It was, I think, it was like an 18-footer, and we had taken it up to Maine with us when I was in high school. Every summer we went to Maine and went to, I think it was called Boyden Lake or Boyden Lake, and we would sail there, and it was just so amazing. And I have this photograph of the sailboat. My mom or my stepmom and my dad were on the sailboat. They just decided to go out on the lake by themselves for a little bit, and I took a picture because it was, the sky was so blue and the water was reflecting it, and you could see the
Mm.
line of trees behind it, and you can't even really see my parents' faces or anything like. I mean, I knew they were on the boat, but it's just every time I look at that photograph, I remember the smell of the balsam pine, and I
Mm.
remember, the cottage that we stayed at, and I just, it brings me back to that moment. And I've shared that photograph with my son, and he's actually never been on a sailboat, but I've taken him canoeing plenty of times, and so he's used to water sports. He was a lifeguard, so
Oh
we
wow.
all love the water. But he said to me about 2 years ago, he said, "Mom, every time you show me that photograph, I know I wasn't there, but I can just based on the descriptions in that photograph, I can tell that that was a really special day for you."
Wow.
So yeah, so sharing those stories from those photographs, the poignant stories, sharing those feelings and helping others feel them along with you. Because as photographers, we're artists, and you know, art is supposed to make us feel. So when you're looking at a photograph, there's you're supposed to feel things. So because
Yeah.
it's art, it's art. Any questions or comments?
Let's get some good questions in here. Megan, do you want me
Yeah,
to switch over to video for you?
sure.
Okay, let me go do this here, and we're gonna do. Let's see if we can bring that up. Okay, and I will bring you up there. Everybody should be able to see Megan. Wave at everybody, Megan.
Hi.
Jackie
Welcome.
Jackie yells at me. She says, but George Eastman did bring the brownie camera.
Say that one more time.
George, while I said George Eastman ruined the party, he did bring us the brownie camera.
Yes, yes, he did.
Let's see. Mary Lou says, this makes me really want to print my photos in order and in albums. And she has her own Hall of Fame photos, which I'm guessing is on her hard drive. Mary Lou, free those photos.
Let him fly. I love it. I love it so much. That's awesome. Congratulations. That's so fantastic.
Jackie says, many of the young people I've met do not have the same memories of sitting and looking at their family's past that I know I got from my grandmother. I think this is why they are more attached to the digital. I know that I have actually had a 20 something tell me I scrapbook the old fashioned way.
You're a geezer. You're a geezer.
But when you think about it, I mean, what's I don't know. I'm not really sure if kids 20 years from now are going to sit there and reminisce the time they spent the entire summer on their cell phone.
So what are they going to talk about then?
I don't know. What happened in the 2020s? I don't know. I was on my cell phone all day.
Coronavirus, dude. Couldn't leave the house.
Ed writes, I'm planning to get out my old albums, maybe 2 a week, and just go through them and enjoy them.
I love that. I love that. Make sure that you write down in a journal that you keep next to it or whatever some of those feelings that come up. Maybe
Ooh,
you
that's nice.
cross reference the photograph, like you label it, and in your journal you label it so that you know exactly which one you're thinking about.
I like that, Ed. I do that with records every once in a while.
Yeah.
pour a nice glass of something. I never thought about doing that with photos. That's amazing. Good idea, Ed. Mary Lou says her sister has a real knack for displaying the old family photos, she puts in quotes, most that she took, in frames. Everyone always wanders around loving the photos.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that.
Do we have anybody in the chat that would like to join us on our little video chat here? We can get Michelle to send out the link. Do you have any photos you would like to share with us? Maybe we can get some people to bring some photos up on the stream. How
Yeah,
does that
I would
sound?
love to see some photos and ask some questions about the photographs that
I'm
they
going to
have.
send the stream link to Michelle privately, and anyone who would like to just message Michelle, and she'll get you that link, and we'll get you to join us. So we have any other thoughts, questions? Jackie says they will value these things when they are my age. Then it's too late.
It really is.
Wow, that's deep.
Mhm.
That's a scary thought.
It is. It really is.
Mm,
When
wow.
when people are thinking about showing their kids their photographs on their phones, first you got to find them.
Mm,
A lot of people don't organize them by album on their phones, so then they have to find them, and I'm guilty of that myself. And then I have like 1,000 pictures of my cats, and I'm like, okay, I know I have this one photograph, and I can't find it because I didn't save it in a special album. And then it becomes frustrating, and then you go, or I've said, you know what, I'll look for it later, and then that never happens. So organize your photographs on your cell phones right away so that you know exactly which ones that you love, that you absolutely love. The ones that are terrible, just delete them, and then put the ones that you love in a special album so you know exactly which ones you want to print.
mm. Megan, do you see any kind of a problem in the future? The fact that we don't save photos and we don't treasure photos. I mean, in 2050, 2060, they're going to think that all we did was photograph, cat pictures on the internet.
The gifts.
Yeah,
Like, how come
memes.
there are no gifts of you, Grandma?
Grandma dabbing in the background with a cat playing the piano.
So, yeah, I think that if we don't preserve our history like that, it's gonna go away. And you know, people think that they have really good memories. As we get older, it's harder. It's harder to remember things because we're so inundated already with all these different technologies. I mean, look at the ads that you get on Facebook.
Mm.
You know, they come up and they go away, and you have, you know, people also block them. You know, a lot of places they only have, I think, what, 2 seconds to get somebody's attention, and then if it's not interesting in those first 2 seconds, they'll just keep going.
Mm.
But we're just inundated with all this stuff right now, and digital photographs just don't have the same meaning. But I think that when, okay, I know this for a fact. Kids today, so when I'm delivering photographs to my clients, for instance, and they purchase a photo box, which has it's photographs that are mounted, and it takes the place of an album, and they're coated with a special coating, so there's no, can't get fingerprints on them or anything like that. And when the kids are handling it and they're looking and they're like, wow, this is so cool, because I'll, you know, whenever I see photos, it's always on mom's phone. And so I think that with that younger generation, because the cool thing, you know, the past 15 years is everything's digital. So these kids who are young, who are now getting to see photographs of themselves on paper or on metal or canvas or whatever, this is like so cool. So I think that we're heading back. The pendulum's going back to the importance of prints. Um, but my biggest fear is that the kids between like 2005 and now um, really don't think that printed photographs are valuable. But you know what? They also don't think that the photographs on their phone are that valuable.
It is an interesting area. But it's interesting you saying that because we've found the same thing. If they are a little bit younger, they've never known the hokey old film cameras, the hokey old slides or anything like that. So a lot of the kids are like, oh wow, I've only known digital photography, I'm really interested in that. So maybe there's hope after all.
And I think that there is. I think we're the pendulum is starting to go back. Just with even with photographing families, it's the thought of it is a lot different than it used to be. So
Uh,
there's
Mary Mary
that.
Lou says the important thing is edit, edit, edit. I don't want to saddle my kids with millions of photos.
Yeah.
I guess the good thing about that, Mary Lou, is a little bit of shooting. Oh, what's the word I'm thinking about? Discipline. Make
Yep.
sure
Don't
you
over.
don't spray and pray.
I have a young lady that I'm mentoring right now, and I was teaching her some studio photography, and she's just like ching 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 ching, and I'm like, her name is Trina, and I said, afterwards, I gave her feedback, and I said, so you really do overshoot. She's like, yeah, but I don't know what else to do, and I said,
Hmm.
so you need to really work with your client, and because if you have to go through 50 pictures of the exact same thing. It's like looking at, and I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen this, but there was a part time job that I had back in my first year of college during um, Easter lily season in a nursery. And you've got gazillions of lilies coming towards you where you have to pack them. And that was my job on Saturdays. And you just start, like, all you see is just this field, and that's kind of what, seeing 50 photographs of the exact same thing, maybe in a couple of different angles or whatever. um, but learning how to be disciplined and working with your subject, and um, getting reactive emotion instead of having them say cheese, or okay, just look at me and I'm going to try and get you, get a nice smile from you. um, that's that is not a that's not a good idea.
I'm gonna bring in Jackie real quick. We have her, and she's got some stuff to share with us. Let's go ahead and bring her up. Hello, Jackie. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Hi. These are the phenotypes that I was talking about in here.
Can you hear
These
her? Okay,
photos,
Megan.
I can. There's a little bit of a glare on the bottom sheet, the bottom part. There, like lift it up just a little bit. There we go. So what is this? That's on this side. That is the house.
that is my great grandparents' home in West Swansea, New Hampshire.
Wow. And have you ever been there?
Yeah, the house is no longer there.
Okay.
So the house burned in the 50s, I think my mother told me.
Okay. And so what does it feel like for you when you see that photograph of that house?
It makes it a little more real when we go back to visit the town because I still have family that live in town. So it's they go by the places and they go, well, this is where that house was, and so now there's a house on that space instead of the McMansion that's been built there.
Right. So when you see that photograph of that house, do you ever like imagine your mom being a young girl running through there?
I imagine my grandmother being a young girl running through there.
That's awesome. I love that. That's so much fun. So how does that feel when you think about that?
It makes my grandmother more of a whole person.
Mm.
Because when we see our grandparents, we only know them at this particular age, and it's like hard for little kids to imagine their grandmother ever being young.
And I have in this book, I actually have her baby book and a lock of her baby hair.
How awesome is that? That's fantastic. Now, show me the photograph that's right next to your hand with the family or the people.
This one.
Yes. So who is all in there?
Those are my grandmother's grandparents in the middle. They're her father's mother and father. On the outside, the other lady and gentleman are her mother's parents. This was taken the day that my great grandfather and my great grandmother got married.
Aw.
And the photo next to that one is my great grandparents' wedding photo.
Is it against a flowering shrub?
No, but it is under a flowering tree.
Well, A flowering tree, same thing. I love that. I love that. And they're in full sun. You can tell they're in sun. And I mean, they're just what a treasure. So when you show this to your how old are your children?
My child is 30. My
Okay.
grandson is 18 months.
Okay. So when your 30-year-old child was a kid, did you ever show these photographs to him?
I didn't receive these until after he had moved out, but he
Okay.
has seen them. We've
Okay.
looked at them.
And what are his thoughts about them?
I'm not sure he's old at the time that he was really old enough to appreciate it yet. Now that he's had a child, I think he's looking at it a little differently.
And so the people that he's never met in these photographs, now they're a little bit more relatable.
Yes, their family.
Right, their family, and you have stories about them. And even though the stories might be limited, you still get to share those stories and have this legacy so that when your 18-month-old grandson, he's 12 years old, if you keep telling these stories and then your son keeps telling your grandson these stories, imagine how much more of a family bond that you guys are going to have because you have this legacy that you've passed down.
Hmm. Absolutely.
I love that so much. That's awesome. Those are beautiful photographs. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Sure. Thank you.
Welcome.
Jackie, have you taken those cyanotypes out and looked at the back of them?
I had to take them out of another book to put them into that book, and there was nothing on the back.
What about the thickness of the paper? Was it kind of like typing paper?
It's not on paper, it's actually on linen.
Oh, okay, correct. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's what makes them really cool.
Was the linen actually that cream color?
Yes,
Okay.
at least the
Oh,
back of it is.
that's awesome. Very cool. Thank you so much for sharing those with us.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Hmm.
Anybody
Excellent.
else?
Let's see. I think we have Mary Lou is trying to get some photos to us. She doesn't have a camera, but we're gonna try to see if we can get her um, to send them to me. Maybe I can bring them up, and maybe we can have her call in and talk about those.
I
Um,
would love that.
Michelle, if you can send Mary Lou a number to the 410 number to give a call into the switchboard here, we'll see if we can get her attached in. And while we do that, I'm going to see if I can't figure out how to do something different here. Let's see if we can bring these up on a different page, maybe. Window capture. I'm going to see if I can't bring up display one. No, I don't think I can do that. But we may have a little bit before Mary Lou can get into us. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna save these photos to my local hard drive, and then we'll just open them that way.
Sweet. I love that.
Yeah, digital
So
to the rescue, right?
there you go. So while you're doing that, I would love to know what everybody's favorite subject to photograph is these days.
Oh, we've got such creative people.
That's awesome. So what? So my favorite thing to photograph right now are the flowers, and I know that sounds so cliche, but I was so interested that you brought up the macro. Um, so I would love to see what everybody comes up with those photographs. But yeah, I love photographing flowers. I was at a friend's house. I know, should not have been at a friend's house. We maintained 6 feet away from each other, but in her front yard, she has a crepe myrtle, and there was this gust of wind that came through, and all the petals just went.
I believe we have Mary Lou coming in. Let's see if we can get her in. Hello, you're live. Is this Mary Lou?
Yeah, hi. Can
Hey,
you hear
Mary
me?
Lou. Megan, can you hear Mary Lou?
Hey, these are some of the Hall of Famers. Can you hear me? Yeah, hi. Yeah. So these are real Hall of Yeah.
We got everybody? Go ahead, Mary Lou.
Okay. So these are what I call the Hall of Famers that, you actually remember what your parents look like. And so that's my dad.
I can't see the photographs.
Let me see if I can get them up for you. Hold on 1 second. Here we go. How about that? There we go.
What a handsome guy.
Do we still have you, Mary Lou? I think Mary Lou's got a bad connection.
Oh, that's awesome.
Let me, we're getting reports that we're not hearing Mary Lou. Let me see who else we got.
Can't hear.
But what I'm going to do is we'll see if we can get Mary Lou to talk to us in chat. She was having a problem. I don't know if it was her side or my side, but we were having an issue with the cell phone connection in. So where are we? We're on these two good-looking gentlemen with all this great fish here.
These fish look wonderful. What kind are those? So I would love to know. I want to see the handsome guy that was in the frame before.
You want me to go back to that one?
Yeah, he looks like he's in the 70s.
Almost
Okay.
John Travolta-ish a little bit.
Right? Exactly. That was what my thought was. And look at those eyebrows.
Wow.
Very stylish. At least he doesn't have the sideburns. But yeah, he is a handsome guy. Look at those eyelashes.
Wow.
Huh. I love it. What a great photo.
Okay, this Mary Lou says these are the Hall of Famers that we the way we see our parents.
Mm-hmm.
That's her father, blue eyes.
Okay.
I'm looking at the blue eyes, and a lot of different emulsions handle blue differently, and you can see there's definitely a nice tonal quality in the eyes.
Absolutely.
Let's go to the next. Let's go to the next photo, Mary Lou. If you could let us know who these fine two gentlemen are.
Yeah, I want to know all about them. What a great story. They had a great fishing day that day.
And unfortunately, with the delay a little bit, we're gonna have a little bit of delay getting Mary Lou to type out. If she wants to try calling us back, she's more than welcome to try. But as I said, she was having some kind of a little bit of an issue connecting in. If she'd like to try maybe on a landline or something, she's more than welcome to try.
So I'm looking at their clothes, and it looks like the gentleman on the right-hand side has Converse on, and it looks like it was a photograph. Oh, it says October 66. Is that right?
Wow.
Did they have Converse back then? I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, but I just loved. I mean, you can tell that they're just pleased with their catch there, and the guy on the right, I don't know if he's like thinking about all the fish steaks he's gonna have soon, or
He's probably looking at the one guy and like, why did you keep the tiny one?
Probably.
Mary Lou writes, this is her father and his fishing buddies, and they always did these shoots. Now, Mary Lou, I want to ask you a question. Did they always go out and bet who would catch the first fish? My father does that. They both put a buck in, and whoever catches the first fish gets the money. high stakes gambling, of course.
I was like, wow, yeah. I'm gonna get you a cup of coffee at McDonald's. That's awesome.
Let's
I
go.
love the photo.
Let's go to the next one here. Right here. What's the next photo?
So while we're waiting on that, oh, there we go. That's the same guy that was in the first photograph.
Yes, looks like it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So it looks like they're camping, and he's got on it looks like a Boy Scout hat, actually.
Is it?
I don't know. Or it could be a fedora.
Wow. Look at those tents. Almost look like, what are they, yurts? They call them yurts.
Yeah, it does. They do. Wow. And those are like the old-fashioned, really heavy kind with the canvas.
Ooh, yeah.
And I want to know, is that water or is that land behind him?
That looks like desert.
Desert?
Like Burning Man 1. This is Mary Lou's father again. Mary Lou, give us some context on this photo. Do you know anything more about this?
If he's in the desert, you know he's getting burnt. He's got
Oh yeah.
fair skin.
And I'm looking up top. I don't know if yeah, I'm not going to be able to see a mouse cursor, but I'm not sure if that's damaged the photo up top or if that's a mountain in the back or clouds.
I
Almost
was
looks like
thinking,
creases.
yeah, it looks like creases, like the one that's almost parallel to the left tent, that's making that triangle. I think that's a crease, but I'm not sure if those curvy lines are creases or if those
Mary
are.
Lou says it's not camping. It was his job after the war. What was his job, Mary Lou? Maybe like surveying?
Oh, huh.
Let's go on to the next. And Mary Lou, go ahead and give us the information on the next one too, which is this fine looking couple.
Oh, I love this so much.
Look at that.
There so is this their wedding day?
We'll have
Look,
to see what
look
she
at
says.
those outfits. Now, what I find so interesting is that that ad for Chesterfields is so huge. The lady's head is bigger than her mom's head, and so I just find that so interesting. And her mom looks really excited. Her dad looks a little bit, I don't know, pensive. Obviously, he was in the Army or the Air Force or whatever, and I can't tell exactly what era this was, but it's probably post World War II, right?
Yeah.
And she looks excited and nervous, and he's just like, I don't know, maybe he's thinking about having to go back. I don't know.
I'm not sure. She writes, he was a conveyor. He mapped out new neighborhoods, and those tents are where he stayed.
Okay, so camping.
Surveyor. This one here is her parents' wedding day.
Yes.
So that explains kind of the candid.
Yep.
And I love the giant photo bomb in the back.
Absolutely.
And Mary Lou says, talk about something that's very important. Photography is as an heirloom. Her daughter had this photo in a locket that she carried in her wedding bouquet.
Oh, how lovely is that?
How cool is that?
That's amazing.
Let's go to this one here.
All right, so it looks like they're praying over a meal.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. So is this at a holiday or?
Yeah, what holiday is this, Mary Lou, or is it just every day?
And that looks like fried chicken on that platter.
Ooh.
Now, can you just smell the fried chicken wafting? I can.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then, you know, the obvious love for God there and for each other, and we've got one, two, like at least 3 generations. Is that a kid's head on the left? If so, then that's 4 generations at one table.
It looks like the little kid's sneaking a peek over mom's head.
Right? Yeah, that's what I thought. And so, yeah, that would be, I think that's 4 generations there.
Wow.
I know, right? And I want to know what else is like. That looks like mashed potatoes, and I don't know what it's obviously some kind of vegetable.
Now, Mary Lou says this is her father's parents. Is a little boy to the left? Is that your father? And this is just an everyday occurrence, which is fantastic, which is great.
How amazing is it to have that and to share that with your children and grandchildren? Because our society, John, is just so busy. We don't have time to eat every day at the dinner table. I have one client who said, you know, I expected that we would be able to all eat at the dinner table, you know, until our children were like 18. And she said once they hit 15, they were always gone because they had activities and school and friends and
that's terrible.
Homework and and so families just don't gather like this anymore. So I think that this is so beautiful. Wow. It sets a standard for families when you see something like this.
Mary Lou says this is the little guy on the left is her cousin.
Aww.
3 generations, my uncles and grandpa.
Awesome. I love it so much.
And I think we have one more photo.
Yeah, I want to see.
Wow.
That's her parents' wedding day again, isn't it? Or no, he's not in his uniform.
Hmm.
They look like they look like they look almost newlywed or maybe right before they got married.
Engagement.
Engagement, yeah. And I love the vignette.
That's beautiful. I love a good reverse vignette.
Right?
Oh.
They're so gorgeous when they're done right. Ah, so beautiful.
Mary Lou, what do we got on this one?
Yeah, I want to hear. I love her mom's hair.
And I'm guessing this is something really small. Is that why it's kind of soft?
Yeah. And they both look very happy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's got his arm around her. Like, is this like? I can't tell if this is right or left. It looks like he's got his arm, like he's really holding her.
Mm-hmm.
Like he really loves her.
She says this was engagement. This was the engagement. A shot of them engaged.
Yeah, that's why they look so excited.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with us, Mary Lou. Do we have Michelle? Do we have anybody else kind of waiting to share something with us? If not, we can start wrapping up.
Yeah.
I don't see anybody else in the StreamYard. Give her about 20 seconds to reply just to make sure. I think we're probably done with the questions and the comments and the shares.
And I love all of the stories that you guys have shared tonight and the photographs that you let us see. So thank you so much for doing that. Oh, I heard a ding.
Let's see what I got. Nope, we don't have anybody else.
Okay, awesome.
Well, Megan, thank you so much. Where can we find you online?
So on Facebook, and you can just find me at Megan Martineau. I have a at Honeybee Photography MD is my Facebook page for my business. Honeybeephotography.com is my website. I'm on Instagram, but I don't use it that often, and I should. I really should. And I'm also on LinkedIn.
I'm typing all these in the chat right now. Trying to.
Yeah.
I've got your business page on there. I think I do.
Yeah.
There we go. Well, that's great. Megan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I actually want to come and see you guys when we're allowed to go out and play.
Definitely do. Our club is very unique. We're really blessed to have such great talent. Beginner, amateur, medium, professional. We've got so many different people representing so many different kinds of photography and skill levels, and everybody loves talking to each other. Everybody loves sharing everything. And we try to do a lot of cool programs, and we try to do a lot of cool field trips, and of course we have some really great contests every month as well.
I saw that. That sounded amazing. So yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I've really appreciated this.
Excellent.
It's been a wonderful experience.
Well, thank you so much again, and we thank everybody for joining us.
Yes, thank you everybody for joining us. I appreciate it.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.